4 o'clock.
Okay.
So we will start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening and welcome to the board meeting. I'm calling the meeting to order at 4 p.m. Brittany, can you do roll call?
I can. Linda Bove.
Present.
Brittany Buchanan, I am present. Colette Chapman.
Present.
Lynn Davison.
Present.
Michael Gordon.
Present.
Sue K. Kneifel.
Present.
Katie Senko.
Present.
Awesome. Moving on to 1.02, overview of itinerant services. Interim Assistant Superintendent Katchoff.
Yes, excuse me. Good afternoon, Board President Kneifel, members of the board, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendent Cooper, and the ASDB community. I would like to ask our 3 regional directors to come on up and give a presentation of and an overview of the itinerant services here at ASDB.
Good evening, Board President Kneifel, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendents Katchoff and Cooper, Governing Board members. My name is Jason Lilly, and I'm currently serving as the Lead Director of ASDB Itinerant Programs. Starting in July of 2023, itinerant programs have been operating with the 3 regional directors to provide service, guidance across the state to districts and charters. The ASDB itinerant program makes up about 51% of the total ASDB enrollment, and we have agreements with over 200 school districts and charters within the state. Tonight you'll be hearing from Greer Martin Parrish, who is the newest director. She is the director of Region 1, Rosetta Hicks, who is the director of Region 2, and I'll be wrapping up this report with news from Region 3, Southern Arizona, and our distance program. If you could please hold your questions and comments to the end of the presentation, we would appreciate it.
Good evening, Board President Kneifel, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendent Katchoff and Cooper, and Governing Board members. My name is Greer Martin Parrish, and I am the proud Director of Region 1 Itinerant Programs. My region encompasses all of the area north of Phoenix for a total of 65,949 square miles. The counties that are served in my region are Apache, Coconino, Gila, and we serve the Payson area only in that county, La Paz, Mojave, Navajo, and Yavapai. I currently have 1 supervising teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing with 9 DHH teachers, 1 supervising teacher of the visually impaired who also provides orientation and mobility services for the entire western half of the state, with 7 full-time and 1 as-needed TVIs. I also have 1 full-time and 1 as-needed orientation and mobility specialists. My team has an administrative assistant who works out of the Cottonwood Hub and a registrar who works here from Tucson. There are currently 6 hub sites for our region that are housed in Bullhead City, Show Low, Flagstaff, Cottonwood, Page, and Window Rock. We are currently serving about 125 students across about 80 school districts and charter schools. Now that you know a little bit more about my region, I'd like to share some of our highlights from this last semester. It was organizing an in-person regional meeting that is usually held virtually due to the distance between our staff. We were able to reserve a large room at the Camp Verde Library and bring all teachers together in person for the first time in 2 years. Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendent Katchoff, and Special Education Director Sarah Sotilli also joined our meeting. This provided an opportunity for team building and connections among staff members in supports of Pillars 1 and 3 of the agency strategic plan. Pillar 1 is excellent communication and relationships, which ensures first-rate customer service. As my teachers were provided an opportunity to strengthen their relationships, This encourages accountability that is built on productive communication and supportive of cultural sensitivity. Pillar 3 is superb organizational culture with a priority of advancing a climate of continuous improvement. We have monthly regional meetings, and as stated previously, they have all been virtual except for this last one in December. Our regional culture was definitely given a boost by having time to see one another in person and connect in ways that are difficult to do virtually. This experience supports professional development and improves job performance by creating a climate of support and connection for teachers who rarely have face-to-face contact with other ASDB staff. It will be a priority to plan an in-person meeting each semester for my team. Our biggest challenge is currently staffing. While we do not have any vacancies on our Teacher of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing team, we do have multiple vacancies on our TVI and O&M teams. The positions are currently posted, and we are investigating the option of utilizing contract teachers to fill these positions. I would like to take this opportunity to thank my team. My teachers and orientation and mobility specialists are doing amazing things across the region. I'm so grateful for their drive to support students and encourage their growth. My leadership team has been an excellent source of support for our teachers through the transition of my starting as the new director and being housed in Tucson. Thank you for this opportunity to share the great things that are happening in Region 1. Now I'll turn it over to Ms. Hicks.
Good evening, Board President Kneifel, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendents Katchoff and Cooper, and Governing Board members. My name is Rosetta Hicks. I am the Director in Region 2 for the Itinerant programs. My region encompasses all the areas within Maricopa County and Apache Junction, which is located in Pinal County. We cover a total of 9,224 square miles. I currently have 10 teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing, 8 teachers of the visually impaired, and 3 orientation and mobility specialists, along with 2 supervising teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing, who also have student caseloads, and 1 supervising teacher of the visually impaired, who also provides assessment for ASDB children in Region 2. My team also has an administrative assistant and is currently hiring for a registrar. We are currently receiving support from other regional registrars. We are also in the process of relocating our office space actually next week, starting on Monday. We provide services for about 550 students across Maricopa County throughout 80 school districts and charter schools. Now that I have finished my regional summary, I want to first acknowledge my team. I express my gratitude to them at every given opportunity. I will not be able to do this without them. I want the board and all individuals hearing this message to know how amazing the Region 2 team has been while supporting the students, district, and each other year after year. We have experienced many changes in Region 2, and I would just like to highlight the fact that we are still standing through everything. While we continue to face challenges as it relates to staffing, I appreciate the statewide model and the team really working together to ensure that we continue to do our best to meet the needs for Region 2 students and districts. All of our opening positions are posted, and we are also considering contract companies to help with the staffing shortage. We have continued to work on providing excellent communication and relationships through our strategic plan, Pillar 1. The team has come together to ensure that we have open communications with districts as we work together during our staffing shortage. We continue to align ourselves with Pillar 3, superb organizational culture, by offering PD opportunities, and most importantly, my leadership team and myself continue to model servitude leadership. Thank you for this opportunity to share a little bit about Region 2. I'm going to call back up Jason.
Good evening again. In addition to my lead duties, I'm also the director for Region 3 and our distance program that provides virtual services to students across the state. Region 3 comprises of Cochise, Gila County minus Payson, Graham, Greenlee, Pima, Pinal, Santa Cruz, and Yuma counties. Region 3 has a total land area of 38,824 square miles and spans the entire Arizona-Mexico border. Across the region, we have one supervisor for the teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing and 14 teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing, one supervisor for TVIs and orientation mobility specialists with 9 TVIs, one orientation mobility specialist, and we are lucky enough to have 3 dual certified. So they're both TVI and O&M. And, dual certified. Region 3 also has a registrar, one admin assistant in Tucson. The distance program has one admin assistant in Yuma, who is also the backup admin assistant for all region, and we have one supervisor for the teachers of deaf and hard of hearing and TVIs in Yuma as well. Regions 1 and 3 have TVIs, TODs, and COMs who have some students who are served virtually. So we have teachers who have hybrid models where we have some in person, some virtual. Region 3 also has the 2 office locations. So one of them is here on the Tucson campus, and we have one more in the Yuma area. Our Yuma office I have made into our area for the distance program, so it houses all of our materials as well as our administrative supports. In all, Region 3 serves about 375 students, and our distance program serves about 70 students virtually across the state. In Region 3, we have about 90 districts and charters. One of the highlights from our region this year is that we were able to host the functional listening evaluation training during the first quarter. This brought together all the regional teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing, audiologists from across the agency, and some ELP staff. The creator of the FLE, Dr. Cheryl Johnson, is an adjunct professor of U of A and a resident of Southern Arizona. She lives here in Green Valley. And this supports our Pillar 3. I was lucky enough to know Cheryl on a personal level, so we were able to get her in. Region 3 was able to absorb 5 districts from Region 2 this academic year, 2 in Pinal County and 3 in Gila County. But we also continue to struggle with staffing. As in the Yuma area specifically, we have 3 posted vacancies that we've had for over a year, and recently added an additional vacancy for teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing in Pinal County, as well as a TVI position to provide some virtual services. As a whole, ASDB itinerant programs virtual services are growing, and we are working to provide better quality of service for students who receive those virtual services. Distance was able to purchase universal microphones and green screen backdrops for teachers who provide the virtual services, and the feedback we are getting from our teaching staff is that these materials are helping improve the quality of the services we are providing. This helps to support Pillar 1. On a personal note, I have been on intermittent FMLA for most of second quarter because I am in the process of adopting one daughter and have been fostering a second. My girls are 10 weeks apart, and we hope to have both finalized by July. I cannot thank my admin, support staff enough for all the hard work they've done to help me in this time to keep the region going. This also has been a huge year for me, and I want the board to know what an amazing team I have in Region 3, as well as I've had the support from my fellow regional directors and the ASDB leadership during all this time. I am grateful and blessed to be part of this ASDB community. In closing, we'd like to thank you for taking the time to learn about our 3 distinct regions and the statewide itinerant program as a whole. Now, if you have any questions, please, we're available to respond.
Any questions? Thank you. Moving on to 1.03, call to the public for agendized items.
None.
Okay, having none, moving on to 1.04, Superintendent's report. Superintendent Reichman.
Good evening, President Kneifel, members of the Board of Directors, Acting Assistant Superintendent Ketchoff, and Assistant Superintendent Cooper. Welcome to our January 11th, 2024 board meeting, our first board meeting for the new year. I'm happy to see you all here. Last week, it happened that I was having lunch with a friend, and that friend asked me, what was my goals for 2024 for ASDB? And my response was really, yeah, I'm looking for a new assistant superintendent for the 2022 sunset audit. And I have various other goals. After that discussion, I started to really consider, and I realized that I've received a lot of feedback from the community and more recently from the board through the superintendent's evaluation. And I definitely needed to reconsider the goals for ASDB. So I'd like to start talking about ASDB as a house, if you will, a metaphor. ASDB is kind of our house. So we have our foundation, as you know. The value of believing every child who is deaf, who is blind, who is deaf and blind, can learn and grow and be successful. We have a vision of excellence and innovation. We have a mission of commitment to excellence in creating and providing educational services to our students in the state of Arizona. And we are committed to excellent innovations and our leaders in service. And as you were just hearing what they were talking about, the commitment to collaboration with the parents, with the school districts, and with the community. And we're also committed to excellence in innovation, to partner with other agencies. And that's the part of our foundation. It's our operating principles. If you remember our operating policy, our pillars, the responsibility, collaboration, and transparency, and that stands for ACT. How we behave, how we interact, our respect as we navigate with each other, and you, the board, are developing the strategic plan. That strategic plan has 4 pillars. And again, you just recently heard them talking about pillars. 1 is excellent communication and relationships. Pillar 2 is superb, outstanding development, culture in the organization, and pillar 4 is excellent management of resources. So those are the pillars, the foundation of our house. And then we have the walls. The walls are our policies, our procedures, our teacher qualifications, our continuous improvement efforts, all of our efforts to work at our operating system. And then we have the roof of our house, and that's our results. The better our results, the better our roof. The better our roof, the better we're protected from the environmental elements. I think the other day I was talking about the walls and then later the roof, and I will talk about that a bit later. But if we go back to the house as a whole, there's something missing. What's missing? The soil, the ground, that which is underneath the foundation. That soil, if it isn't strong, if it isn't stable to support the foundation, then the foundation cracks and the pillars and the walls fall and the roof begins to crumble and fall. We have to have a stable, strong soil underneath the foundation. That's what the soil is. The soil is our culture, our climate of culture. If we have a culture of distrust, disrespect, speaking negatively about each other, then the entire house will not hold, will not stand. We have to have a climate and a culture of respect, respecting each other, of trust. We have to have a sense of psychological safety. And then we can work together. We have to be able to speak positively about each other. You just heard the 3 directors of Itinerant Services, and they spoke very positively about their organization, about their work that they're doing. So the first goal, and I do have 8 goals, and I will have to look back in my notes to make sure I cover all 8 goals. But my first goal is to focus on improving the climate of culture of the agency. We talk about how we can be better respectful of each other and how we can be better at developing trust. That's pillar 1 of developing excellent relationships, of focusing on improvement in communication. As you know, I have been working on improving my communication, and clearly I need to continue working on that. But that's goal 1. Goal 2 is the strategic plan. We have 5 years of strategic planning. Right now, we're in our 3rd year, and we're starting to look at the measurement and the strategic plans. We want to put in the targets of each measurement, and we want to start watching the data that we collect and what we've collected so far, and analyzing that data and using that information to help inform our decisions. And we haven't started doing that, but we want to do that. So right now in the 3rd year means a year and a half, July of 2025, we will be proposing to you how we can improve the measurements, the metrics, of how we're going to provide data that's useful, informative for you, the board, and to us as well. The second goal, that's the second goal. The 3rd goal is really agency relations. That includes our public relations efforts, and as you know, we have contracted with an outside called Levige. And last year, 2023, we got the most positive metrics that we've had thus far. TV, newspaper, articles, great PR. The robotics team that was in Phoenix, they had 3 times that they were commented and videoed about our robotics team. And we're continuing to work with Levige to do the public relations with Phoenix. Media, Tucson Media, and all over the state. We've hired a part-time agency relations specialist, and her work is going to be focusing on the development of quarterly agency prints outs. They'll be doing agency surveys to collect information on our strategic plan. That was the 3rd goal. The 4th goal. Cognia accreditation. Sorry, interpreter error. The 4th goal is accreditation. About 6 years ago, we decided to get accreditation from Advanced Ed Agency. So we were supposed to get reaccredited last year because we were supposed to do that every 5 years. But because of COVID, Advanced now, and that's their name, Cognia, decided to postpone by 1 year. So that means next fall of 2024 and spring of 2025, and we are currently starting to get ready for the accreditation review. It will probably happen later in the fall, possibly early spring. And we have filed. We have assigned Melissa DeVries to do the work and take the lead for the accreditation for us. There's going to be a lot of work involved with that. The 5th goal, as you already know actually about this, is our master facility plan. We're continuing to progress with that, and you will be hearing more about this from Albert Duff. We contracted, as you know, with an architectural firm called LEA, and currently LEA is working with the different ed programs here at ASDB and really looking at their needs, figuring out how the buildings are going to meet those needs. We hope to have an open house in March. That will be advertised shortly, and you all will be invited to come to the Phoenix campus and the Tucson campus for open houses that we have planned. We have discussions with the community about the master's facilities plan, and you've already heard some feedback. I think you will hear more probably later into this evening. The 6th goal is the recruitment and retention of teachers, qualified staff. You just heard from the itinerant directors about our vacancies. We have about 220 teachers currently in the working positions here at ASDB. 32 positions are still vacant. That's more than 10%. The breakdown of the vacancies, and you've heard some from the three directors, the biggest vacancy numbers are at the Phoenix campus, Phoenix Day School for the Deaf, PDSD. They have 13 teacher vacancies, which has really had an impact. It's not just on our students, but the impact is definitely on the students, but it's also impactful on the teachers and other staff that are taking on the additional responsibilities and duties. They are worn out. So the thrill of the Christmas holidays that are happening, that we just had, that we were able to have a week of rest and coming back, is letting us move forward. And part of that is because we haven't had the teachers and we don't have the professional staff. And it's the greatest impact on our finances as well. So, several impacts across the board that affects the students, the other teachers, and the people that are currently working with us. And finances as well. We are really looking over and analyzing what are we going to do with this. Because the programs out there, the number of those coming out of graduate programs is dwindling numbers. The students that are graduating are shrinking, and we are competing for those same pool of teachers, of those graduates. They're just not there. It's not happening. So we're going to have to do something else. And we're planning to do something else. Right now, temporary assistant superintendent Ketchoff is taking the lead. With Courtney Fritz to write a plan for establishing our educational preparation, not from a graduate program, just getting certification, a certification program. So we're not even getting those with the master's degrees. We're not giving master's degrees. We're just seeking certification. We've already had, I think, 10 or 15 teachers with emergency certification, which means they're not qualified for teachers of the deaf or teachers of the visually impaired certification. But the only way that we can fill the positions is to hire them without the qualifications and to get the emergency certification and then place them for 3 years while they get the training that they need, and then they get the regular certification. Is that working? I'm not sure. But we are seriously considering erecting our own training, a 2-year training program. Next week, we will have a meeting with the Arizona Department of Education for that discussion. The ADE has already approved another school district to do their own training. so they can bring in people to become teachers to get the emergency certification. These people can move to Texas and get a job as a teacher with a certification there? Probably not, because it doesn't have the regular requirements in the certification. But that's what we're seriously considering. That's how dire the situation is currently. So, the seventh goal.
We are continuing with our 2022 sunset audit. We are currently in the process of finalizing that. So if you as the board remember, the Arizona Auditor General gave us 8 recommendations. We've completed most of the recommendations. We have yet to complete all, but we just met with the Arizona Auditor General's office to discuss the process for finalizing. They just recently had some turnover. So instead of the 18-month follow-up, which is supposed to happen in March of 2024, it will be postponed to September 2024. And I will allow Assistant Superintendent Cooper to expand a little bit further on that. So the last goal of mine is a search for the Assistant Superintendent. We just finalized our contract with INIVI. This is Shane Feldman's organization. He will be helping us with the national search for our next assistant superintendent. We already have about 12 or 13 applicants for that position. Most of the applicants are internal here in the state. INIVI will be helping us to broaden our search with networking nationally and asking others who are qualified to apply. We will be scheduling and setting up an interview panel in March, and our idea, or INIVI is recommending, that we include the community and we include our own staff on the interview panel. So our thinking is that we will have 2 representations from the early learning program, 2 representatives from Itinerant services, and 2 representatives from the 2 site-based campuses, maybe an administrator or a lead or staff, which makes a total of 6. And then we will invite the Arizona Association for the Deaf and select a representative for that panel, and invite the National Federation of the Blind, the Arizona chapter, to send a representative, so that we have blind representation on our panel. So that makes a total of 8. So if you have any ideas of those who should be on the interview panel, I am open for feedback or suggestions. We plan on scheduling come March, the final selection, hopefully in April, and then in May, at the May board meeting, a candidate will be presented for approval. That is the current plan. I will keep you updated. I also have a PowerPoint with comprehensive information from INIVI that I will be sending out to ASDB as well. so that we are all on the same page. So that is my 2024 goals, the 8 goals. So that doesn't include everything. There's a lot of other work that is happening behind the scenes. ASDB, as you know, if you take the time to read the board report, there's a lot of information there about the other work that I have been doing. For example, the PBIS programs established on both campuses, the new information system that's been implemented, etc. So I'm now open and happy to accept any questions.
Thank you, Annette. I guess if you could flesh out just a little more of the emergency certification that would train people in the field of deafness and blindness. You said it was a 3-year emergency certification that would allow them to receive a 2-year training through ASDB, training on site. Is that accurate? And also, who is providing this emergency certification, and what's it based on? I do understand the labor shortage, and it's an unbelievable challenge in the field, but I'm just curious about this. Who's supplying the training when it's being done in-house, and what's the timeline again on the emergency as compared to the training as being done on site?
I believe Assistant Superintendent Katchoff is taking the lead on that, so I will turn that question over to you.
All right, excuse me. So in the state of Arizona right now, you can get an emergency cert if you're currently in a program, for example, the U of A program, to get their certification. So that's one piece right now where we do have staff who are on emergency certs who are in programs, but they have not completed the said program. So they're kind of flying the plane while they're learning about the plane and aviation. And that's Arizona as a whole. That's happening everywhere. In Arizona, there's also something called the EPP, which is it's an educator preparation program. And this was approved by the legislature approximately, I honestly don't know, maybe 2-3 years ago, to where they allow school districts to create their own educator preparation program. This can be a 2-year program where then you get a kind of a special cert that you're a qualified classroom teacher. It would be different than, excuse me, if you had a cert as a TVI, DHH, or any other certification that's available in Arizona. It's really state of Arizona's way of trying to deal with the labor shortage and the teacher shortage. So we have started investigating what would that look like if we did it here. If we brought in people who did have a bachelor's degree, but if we created our own educator preparation program, what could that look like for those 2 years? Prior to COVID, we did a substantial amount of work with coming up with an endorsement here in Arizona for a TVI endorsement and a DHH endorsement. That was well over a year of working with the universities. If you recall, surveys went out to stakeholders, the field, as to what are the most important things for folks to learn. So we are looking at that to see, is there a way that we can, in a 2-year period, what would it mean here at ASDB as far as personnel and resources if we took our own, kind of created our own EPP that is allowed here in Arizona. There's been initial, as the superintendent mentioned, there's been some initial looking into it. We have a more formal conversation with ADE coming up, I believe, next week. So a lot of the details are still in the future as we're trying to figure out what this could look like.
Okay, just 2 quick follow-ups. Is there a requirement of having a bachelor's degree for the emergency certification and/or the in-house training?
So for the EPP, you would have to already have a bachelor's degree.
Okay.
For the emergency certification, I believe so, because our folks would be getting their master's degree in TVI or DHH, so my assumption would be that they already have a bachelor's.
And the certification would eventually come from Department of Ed? Because I know it's a certification body, there's only a couple of them that are available. So who's actually providing the certification ultimately?
So in both cases, it would be the Arizona Department of Education. With the emergency cert, they're basically saying, they're assuming that you're going to finish your program within a couple years and get everything completed. With the EPP, it would be similar to where they would be the final entity to say, here's the certification.
Okay. So it's not coming through AER or through the blindness professional certifications or even ACRBP. It's through Department of Ed directly. Okay.
Correct, because that would be through their EPP program.
Okay. It's interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. And we really are in the exploration phase. Mm-hmm. I personally think there's a lot of promise as we're, it goes back to that almost looking for water of if your well's not really pumping out enough, you got to start drilling other wells. We obviously love the U of A. We love all the programs that are providing us teachers, but as Annette mentioned, nationally those enrollment numbers have gone down. So nationally we're fighting for the same folks, and we have to be a little more creative.
It's true, and the emphasis on specialization just isn't there as it used to be. So, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Thank you, Annette. Moving on to 1.05, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction Report, Interim Assistant Superintendent Katchoff.
All right. Good afternoon, Board President Kneifel, members of the board, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendent Cooper, and the ASDB community. You all have my board report, and I look forward to any questions. But, as mentioned in the board report, the ODD was pleased to facilitate a unique professional development opportunity for ASDB Tucson in the DHH Elementary Department. Our teachers collaborated with and hosted a group of 11 Boston University graduate students for an entire week of ASL and English bilingual programming and instruction. This took place over November 27th and December 1st. The Boston University students designed and applied materials and instructions based on the models provided by their professors, Kristen DePerry and Todd Zubek. Based on this experience, our ASDB teachers now have access to all the templates, models, and resources that were provided by Boston University and that they observed over the week-long experience training. I do want to give a huge thanks to the ODD director, Michael Olivier, our curriculum specialist, Tina Schartzer and Rose Andriacola, as well as Tucson Principal Paul Sanders and Assistant Principal Melissa Brown, for all the hard work that they put together to make this happen. Repeatedly, so let me back up. Boston University does this every year. Repeatedly during their visit, they talked about how our hospitality was off the charts. And I'm not making that up. We really went out of the way to roll out the red carpet for them, and it showed. I also wanted to thank the entire elementary team here in Tucson for their hospitality, as 11 graduate students basically took over their classrooms for a week. I also want to thank Sabrina Lillybridge and Gladys Villalobos for assisting with all the day-to-day requests that happened while BU was on campus. as well as Kim Bitrus and Jessica Calvin for working behind the scenes on items like travel and hotels for the BU staff. The PDSD literacy coach was able to come up during that week, and PDSD has already started implementing a lot of what we learned from Boston University, and Tucson has big plans for implementing that model moving forward in next year. We are really looking forward to continue working with Boston University, and if any of those 11 grad students end up becoming staff here based on the fantastic experience, I'll make sure that the board is aware of that. Before the break, all staff on the educational side of the agency were given the opportunity to provide an anonymous 2 stars and a wish survey about their director or principal. This was a very short survey to where they could give 2 stars, which would mean 2 things that they really like about their director or principal, and 1 wish of something they wish the person would do better or could continue to build on. The purpose of this was to give all of our leaders some formative data now instead of the end of the year, so they could take that and make changes while we still have the staff here throughout the year. This information has been summarized and provided to each principal and director. These leaders will now be letting their staff know that they have the information, thanking them for the 2 stars, and they'll continue to work, or they'll continue to do those, and what they'll be continuing to build on when it comes to the wishes. My staff also completed one for me, and I appreciate their honest feedback. As you know, Superintendent Reichman has been gathering a lot of input from agency staff and our stakeholders this year, as evidenced by the 3 town halls that were completed in October, the steering committee meetings, and the 2 stars and a wish survey that I just referenced. Another form of data that we recently collected was the Portrait of a Graduate survey that was completed before winter break. We received about 145 responses. These responses came from staff, ASDB alumni, parents, guardians, community members, and some of our partnering school districts. A summary of this data has been included in my board materials. This data will assist the agency as we move forward in prioritizing what we need to do in our day schools, as well as what needs to be in place as we move forward with our master facility plans. As you can see, a lot of it focuses on post-school outcomes in CTE, and we've already started investing a lot in that, as evidenced by our CTE director position this year. So in conclusion, we are continuing to grow as an agency. We're increasing opportunities for communication, as well as implementing best practices as we move into the future and our world keeps on turning. To quote the great Mel Brooks, as long as the world is turning and spinning, we're going to be dizzy and we're going to make mistakes. As we move forward, we might not always be perfect in the implementation of what we're trying to do or what our plans are. But I do believe as long as we're communicating and including the right people in these conversations, which includes the ASDB staff and our community, and if we continue to remind ourselves that we are here for the students, we will continue to build the ASDB that we all want. Thank you.
I have a follow-up question for you. On the 2 stars and 1 wish survey, did you notice any themes across the board?
I did. The majority of the staff do feel like they are being supported by their current directors and principals. So in the stars, everybody felt that their principal or their director is trying to support them the best that they could. One wish, and it kind of came up for me too, is trying to respond within 24 hours, especially when it comes to email. Everybody's busy, so that is something that as a team we've already discussed, ways that we can make that a priority. But you know, a lot of people want information, they want feedback quickly, and as we continue to move forward in this world where there's texting, email, a million different ways to get information, we do have to figure out the best way to get that to people.
Thank you. I wanted to say that I also appreciated that receiving the special ed newsletter. That was very informative, and I do want to say that I appreciated that she shared her 2 stars and 1 wish information in there. That was really nice to see. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for, okay. Then moving on to 1.06, Assistant Superintendent of Agency Operations and Support Services Report, Assistant Superintendent Cooper.
Good afternoon, Board President Kneifel, Superintendent Reichman, Acting Assistant Superintendent Katchoff, members of the board, and the ASDB community. Before I proceed with giving updates from the Agency Operations and Support Services departments, I would like to provide more of an update on the performance audit and sunset review that was conducted by the Office of the Auditor General, in which the audit report was completed in September 2022. And as outlined in our response, we agreed with the 1 finding and 8 recommendations. In late February, early March 2023 is when the Auditor General began their 6-month follow-up review to assess our programs in implementing those recommendations and addressing the audit finding. In the meeting we had this past Tuesday, we were provided a status update on their follow-up review, where they did mention the 8 audit recommendations we received and the 1 finding. Almost all of them have been completely implemented. And as you are aware, we're still working on implementing the master facility plan and reviewing the appropriateness of our itinerant program fees, reimbursement amounts, and cost of services that we are providing. Additionally, we are also addressing the recommendation as it relates to how ASDB investigates and resolves complaints from staff, students, parents, and the public, which includes implementing timeframes. Specific to this, we are still in the information gathering stage of selecting a complaint management software that will let students, staff, and others submit complaints and assist us with tracking, recording, and resolving those complaints in a more efficient and effective manner. Our goal is to have the finding and all recommendations fully implemented before the auditors begin their next test work, which is scheduled for fall 2024. Now, specific to the departmental reports, there are a few key items that I would like to highlight. The IT department, student information system team, and data integrity are actively working with each of the educational program areas to ensure their needs are being met, more specifically related to addressing the scheduling, attendance, student count, and grading issues within Synergy. There are also a few state reporting issues with ADE that we've encountered. Some of these issues have caused additional work for the agency operations team, as well as each of the registrars, which has caused ripple effects when it comes to ensuring that the funding and the associated voucher or fee-for-service revenues are being processed and received timely. In other words, it's affecting our cash flow. However, everyone is collaboratively working together to ensure all of the issues are being addressed. And over the next few weeks and upcoming months, it is expected that the team will review the operational effectiveness and efficiencies of our current student information system processes. I was going to provide an update on the master facility plan. However, Superintendent Reichman mentioned most of what I was going to report on. I do want to add, though, the team is taking all data and information into consideration to ensure all agency needs are being met. The 2 open houses we have for the campuses are currently scheduled in March, and that will allow all staff, students, and the community to come and see the proposed consolidations and provide feedback that will be taken back to the architectural firm for evaluation. I do want to mention we're also looking into the possibility of doing new construction for all of the agency programs. For business services, the budget and financial reports for November 23 and 2022 will be provided separately under agenda item 4.01. We have entered into the 3rd quarter of the fiscal year, and based on a review of the financial data thus far, we continue to incur expenses for items that were not previously budgeted for, such as contractual obligations for the transportation and nursing services. And because of some of the recruitment and retention challenges we continue to face with the number of vacant positions, we are having to use contracted staffing agencies to help meet the day-to-day educational needs for our students. And as you are aware, I've been here for going on 6 years now. And to be transparent, I continue to ask myself, since we've become an LEA, these last few years, how we are going to cover the gap between what we receive from the federal government in grant funding, other non-federal resources, and what we receive from the state compared to the actual costs for our students to receive special education. This all comes with my understanding that as an educational state agency, we try to fulfill the needs of all of our students, no matter how costly it can be. So with that said, the business services team and I make every effort to find a way to cover those costs. And because of the contractual obligations continuing to be significant costs to the agency, we will be buckling down and begin working with the various departments to forecast their year-end projections. This will ensure we continue to address the funding gaps as they arise with the limited operational and fiscal resources the agency currently has. As it pertains to the agency's fiscal year 2025 budget package submission, we have a meeting scheduled with the State Office of Strategic Planning and Budgeting so that they can provide an overview of what is expected to be included in the executive budget. We are hoping that most, if not all, the funding issues we are seeking monies for from the state will be funded in some capacity. It is expected in the March 7th board meeting, I will be able to provide more specific updates. The media team has several projects that they have been working on, which includes updates to the agency website, creating donation marketing materials, and working with the human resources team to create multiple videos for recruiting. Over the last several weeks, the team has been supporting the 2 school campuses to ensure there is adequate media coverage for next week's Western States Basketball Classic, which ASDB is hosting here on the Tucson campus. So good luck to our PDSD Roadrunners and the Tucson campus Sentinels. As we all know, staffing is one of the biggest challenges we face, as our biggest commodity is people doing the work. I want to remind everyone that recruitment and retention of staff is not just a responsibility of our Human Resources Department, but a collective effort amongst all. Each of us see that teachers, paraprofessionals, and highly skilled staff recruitment is becoming more and more challenging each year. And as such, we're having to adapt and learn new ways to attract and keep staff. We're encouraging more staff to participate in our recruitment efforts, such as the open houses, and we've just recently implemented paid practicums and internships. Another transparent moment I want to mention is the ongoing levels of frustration and confusion over our various HR processes. In alignment with the ACT operating principles, accountability, collaboration, and transparency, we realize that there needs to be better communication with staff on the front and back end of our HR processes. To this end, the team is modifying the existing resource documents to create more transparency which will include streamlining and identifying more clarity on the roles and responsibilities for all involved in the processes. Again, not just HR. Another major issue we continue to hear about is the need for us to fix compensation. Compensation is extremely important, however, it's often challenging to get it right. This is especially true in our current staffing climate, where there is a rapid wage increase to combat the labor shortages and inflation. So to the team's credit, this is an area of focus that we continue to address. And as you all are aware, we're in year 3 of our compensation restructure project, where we are looking agency-wide around compensation and how to improve our strategies. So if you recall at the November 2nd board meeting, you all approved an increase adjustment to the classified coach and special recruitment salary schedules to retain, recruit, and compete with other employers who are required by law to adjust their salaries to the Arizona minimum wage increase of $13.85, which went into effect this past January 1st. As you know, as an agency under the state of Arizona, we're not required by law to follow that minimum wage increase. However, we make every effort to try to stay competitive. So effective January 6th, all staff members on the classified salary schedule will receive a 75-cent adjustment wage increase in their base salary, except those staff earning an annual salary of over $100,000. An email communication of this increase is expected to be sent out over the next few days. Also included in today's consent agenda item is 6.01. We are proposing updates to the teacher salary schedule. This is to reflect a change from 20 years of experience to 25 years of experience. We've also updated the schedule to have consistent percentage rates between each step. And if approved, the contracts for the teaching staff will be issued with salaries for the next school year. As you are aware, we were previously issuing contracts for the school year with current salary information. And at the March 7th board meeting, we will present all other salary schedules that we're proposing adjustments for the new year so that staff members who leave for the summer know the changes going into effect upon their return from summer break. The other salary schedules include changes to the interpreter and related services salary schedules, where we are also proposing extending their years of experience from 20 to 25 years. And as we continue to address the compensation for all of our agency positions, we're looking at the feasibility of how the cost of living adjustments have been given over the last couple of years as we continue to increase staff salaries. We're also in the process of modifying our listing of all positions and identifying when the last time a salary survey was done for each, and increasing the frequency of when those salary surveys and market analysis will be completed. So to conclude my report for today's meeting, my message is that we as an agency will need to be mindful and ensure we address the challenges of our fiscal and programmatic sustainability. As funding is becoming tight, staff turnover continues to be high, and resources are hard to come by. That wraps up my report, and there's no other updates to provide at this time. I'm open to answer any questions or comments at this time.
Any questions? I have one. Have we considered from a hiring and retention standpoint, since we are using so many contractual services right now, possibly a headhunter or a recruiting service?
Yes, but no. I should mention that, as you're aware, as a state agency, we're having to use the state contracted vendor, which is ACRO. So they have been assisting us. We are looking at other avenues at this time to be creative. And headhunting has been an area that that has been mentioned or suggested for us to look into.
Okay, thank you. No other? Okay, moving on to 2.01, Approval of the consent agenda consistent with board policy to include items 3.01, 3.02, 5.01, 5.02, 5.03, 6.01, 6.02, 7.02, and 7.03.
I'll make a movement to approve 3.01, 3.02, 501, 502, 503, 601, 602, 702, 703.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Katie. I second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Seeing and hearing none, motion carries. Okay. Moving on, that's a consent.
No, 4.01.
I'm sorry, thank you. Okay, moving on to 4.01, Finance Report, Kim Bittrich, Director.
Good afternoon, Board President Kneifel, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendent Cooper, and Assistant Superintendent Chakchop, members of the board and ASD community. You have been provided our most recent board report that covers the financial data for November 2022 and November 2023. This data was covered in more detail at our most recent Finance Committee meeting held on Monday, January 8th, with Board President Kneifel. Also in attendance were Superintendent Reichman and Assistant Superintendent Cooper. The total student count provided in the board report for December 1st is a summarized total based on the data available in Synergy, the new student information system. We are still working on getting the detailed information, including eligibility category, on the student count similar to what has been provided in the past. The current data shows 2,203 students as of December 1st, 2023, compared to 2,090 students December 1st, 2022. In order to provide accurate data, we will continue to validate the information reported in Synergy as we navigate the new system and the changes ADE has implemented. As of December 1st, we had about 510 FTE, which includes 8.5 FTE from FBC. At that time, we employed 729 staff. Only 155 are full-time with the 1.0 FTE. There are currently 167 vacancies across the agencies. Vacant positions are posted until filled. The highlights of the November 23 financial report show the collective revenue of $3 million was $1.3 million lower than November 2022 revenue of $4.3 million. The major difference is the decrease in receipts of the institutional voucher. The October and November institutional voucher payments were both received in December. The increase in the federal and state grants is due to an increase in the Medicaid reimbursements since they've improved their system from going to EFT payments. The decrease in other operating revenue is mostly due to a decrease in receipts from the Classroom Site Fund. And this is partially based on the student count information. The budget fiscal year 2023 obligated expenditures of $27.6 million were $53,000 higher than budget fiscal year 2022 obligated expenditures of $27.6 million. Salaries are slightly higher than last budget fiscal year. However, employer-related expenditures are lower due to a reduction in the agency cost of medical insurance premiums. Contractual food services were moved from the professional and outside services line to better track those costs. Professional and outside services increase is mostly from the price increase for the contracted transportation services. Travel has increased with the increased professional development opportunities for the staff and out-of-state competitions for students. If there are no questions, this concludes my report, but I am available for questions.
Any questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 6.03, approval of Superintendent Reichman's performance evaluation.
This is Linda. Do we need to go into executive session?
It's okay. I would welcome a motion to do that.
Okay. This is Linda Bove. I move that we go into executive session.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, we need to read the pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A1. The board may vote to go into executive session, which will not be open to the public for the purposes of discussion and consideration of employment matters as it relates to this agenda item. So we will adjourn for a few minutes to move into executive session. Testing. Just want to let you know we're going to take a 10-minute break before we resume the meeting. Thank you. was just giving you the heads up 2-minute warning. I hate those. I feel like the one up in the booth is like right in my eyes. That light.
So, TCO wanted me to write more. Apparently, I wasn't quite descriptive on the whole list.
Just discuss summary of performance evaluation prior to vote. Because we're not supposed to put specifics. Kind of general, especially last person.
Apparently, it wasn't. It was too big.
Alrighty. Do you need to count us down? I'm thinking right at the 55 if we could.
Media, are you ready? Okay, we'll start in 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Thank you. We are resuming at 5:55 after executive session, and we are on 6.03, the approval of Superintendent Reichman's performance evaluation. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to.
I heard Colette. I have a motion by Colette. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, seeing none, moving on to 7.01, Ombudsman Report. Donna Williams, Esquire.
I can lift it up a little bit. Good evening, President Kneifel, members of the board, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendents Cooper and Ketchoff, and the ASDB community. I present to you the Office of the Ombudsperson semi-annual report covering the reporting period July 2023 through December 2023. Is there a slide? Are we doing the slides? If not, no worries. Oh, there we are. Next slide. Again. Super. So since I've had this position, which was July of 2022, I've really been working to facilitate positive relationships among ASDB staff, students, and the public by collaborating with the staff and the community to ensure fair processes that are equitably and reasonably resolving their concerns, whether it be staff, students, parents, and community members. And really, the activities I've been engaged in furtherance of this overarching goal has been everything from just simply providing information to conducting mediations. And just as an overall statement, I think based on the feedback thus far, users have been satisfied with the assistance that they have received from the office. Next slide, please. Just as a reminder, in terms of the availability of services through the office, that is the menu of items, ranging, as you can see, from providing information, the very simplest form of engaging the office, to mediation, probably the most complicated, and then everything in between. And I think in this reporting period, just about every aspect of the continuum was engaged. And that was true of the previous reporting periods as well. So on to the aggregate user data. Next slide, please. Users are generally directed to fill out a request form when seeking the assistance from the Ombudsperson office. The form then captures data like name, title, contact information, and then details about the concern. And then I'm alerted by email that there's been a request form, and then I can engage users after that point. So some users have been utilizing the form. I think many others have been reaching out both by phone and by email, and certainly my experience has been that repeat users don't fill out the form anymore unless they have been directed to do so by me. They just simply pick up the phone or email me. And I would also note that several users have used both the Ombudsperson email address and the Donna Williams email address. So at this point, everything is all mixed up, and that's fine as long as users are using. So from July 2023 to December 2023, 8 users submitted the actual Ombudsperson request form. And of those 8 requests, 6 were from staff and 2 were from administration. One of the administration users was actually from an agency outside of ASDB, just for note. So of those 8 users, the breakdown in terms of subject matter would be 2 for interpersonal conflict, 2 regarding a formal complaint request, 2 regarding a procedural concern, 1 a policy concern, and then 1 would be an other category, which is kind of a catch-all category. I would say that the concerns raised were resolved probably at the level of about 65% with the assistance of the Ombudsperson. 37% of those are probably ongoing and working towards resolution. Sometimes my engagement with users requires multiple contacts, sometimes homework on their part, sometimes homework on my part. So those things are in progress. I did utilize interpreters this past reporting period for at least one of those interactions. And I also responded to over 90 email during that same time, again, divided between both the Ombudsperson email account and my personal account, and then there were about a dozen calls. It should also be noted that my phone rings consistently throughout the day, most of which have nothing to do with Ombudsperson services. So I think the number is on some list. People are trying to sell me things, et cetera, et cetera. So that happens as well. One of the user's questions, when they're researched and answered, so once I've engaged the user, we've met or talked, and I've done the research and really have gotten back to them to answer whatever concerns they had, or at least directed them to the appropriate resource, I then consider the matter resolved. So when I'm talking about things being resolved, it doesn't necessarily mean that their situation is fixed. It means my role in terms of helping them navigate whatever that concern was has been resolved. Next slide, please. Again. And one more. So during the last reporting period, which was in July, I talked about the results of the focus groups. And just to recap very briefly, there were 4 main themes that emerged from the responses that were collected during that process. The first was the need to establish a comprehensive communication strategy. The second was meaningful opportunities for staff to provide feedback. The third was greater information about and access to the board. And then 4, greater visibility and engagement with internal and external stakeholders from the superintendent and assistant superintendents. Since that time, I have been working with the superintendent and the assistant superintendents and the leadership team to help develop this comprehensive communication strategy. Next slide, please. In August, the steering committee met to discuss the focus group results and then really lay the groundwork for the communication plan, establish a timeline, and then a process for agency rollout and then implementation of the plan. We also had an education executive team meeting in October to discuss the communication plan in greater detail and really its relationship to building trust and collective efficacy, which will serve as the foundation for the plan. So the steering committee also met in October, and that was to prioritize the list of suggested communication commitments established during that August meeting. So of those priority commitments, the ombudsperson will be directly involved with ongoing efforts to conduct focus groups. So really this ongoing process of getting feedback from staff on how we're doing, what more is needed, and anything that would involve that and surveying, questionnaires, et cetera, designed to get a pulse on how we're doing. Over the next several weeks, the priorities identified from the October steering committee will form the basis of the internal communication plan, which will be presented in February, the steering committee and meeting for review and discussion. I recently met with the superintendent and the assistant superintendents to really figure out what direction we wanted to go in with the next round of focus groups. So I'm in the process of drafting some additional questions that will bring in the original group of folks that participated in the first round to find out of all the things that we've implemented, what is working, what's not working, and kind of where we need to go from here. So those efforts will begin over the next couple of months, hopefully concluding in March or April. Next slide, please. One of the things that struck me, at least over the last year and a half, is the community's awareness or not awareness of my presence here. And you know, it's good one way or the other, but I think it's important to at least make sure that the community knows that I'm here, how they can utilize me so that if there is a need, they know that I'm here. So I think that I'm kind of underutilized by the community, and if that's something that the agency, in terms of a resource, wants to make available to the community, then my suggestion with that, we create some visibility around the role and maybe how I can interface with the community. So we have Parent Square, announcements, things of that nature, social media, of course. I'm open to doing a video short with ASL, and then just any kind of marketing that might help with visibility. So, you know, ensuring that the community has sufficient information about the services and how to access those services will certainly bring greater awareness. And that's the goal. So, next slide. In conclusion, I logged over about 150 hours during this reporting period. That's really on par with previous reporting periods. And so, again, I think the general volume and tenor of work is suitable for someone in a part-time capacity. Of course, as soon as we open the floodgates, right? I say that today with great conviction. But, you know, certainly should that change over the coming months, I will share that as well. But I think that also going forward and developing the internal communication plan will also decrease kind of the interpersonal issues that seem to come my way on a regular basis. But the next report for this office will cover the reporting period January 2024 to till June 2024. And that concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Can I make a possible suggestion and maybe have her come to do an information session at one of the board meetings, like we have had other information sessions, so that it would be also on the live stream for the public to see about utilization, how to utilize the ombudsman position? Well, I'm kind of looking at Annette and you, both of you, as a possible idea, just kind of throwing out there. Okay. If no other questions, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to 7.04, discussion and possible action item, approval of suggested changes to ARS Title 15, 1204, and Title 41, Chapter 27, Article 2, Maria Murphy, Director of Policy and Government Relations.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Madam Superintendent, Assistant Superintendents, and members of the ASDB community. For the record, my name is Maria Murphy. I am the Director of Policy and Government Relations. Members of the board, you have before you the abstract and the template language that was presented to Representative David Cook to see if he would be interested in possibly running a bill regarding special education vouchers. This would be running the bill that was run last year again by Representative Cook. We would be asking him to rerun this bill, and we are hopeful that we may be able to get some motion on it. As you are all probably aware, the regular session began on Monday. Thus far, 749 bills have been introduced. 598 of them were introduced this week. 277 of them were introduced today. So I've been pretty busy. As of today, I am tracking approximately 55 different bills. 19 of them are strike everything bills that will probably not come into play until later on in the session. 17 of them are actually continuation bills, and 3 of them are on what's called my hot list, the ones that I have to keep an extra eye on. I find myself in the unusual position of coming here asking you for permission to drop a bill, but also to ask you for forgiveness because Representative Cook dropped the bill already. He dropped it last Friday, so it's already been introduced. So I'm hopeful that you will give ASDB permission to actually run the bill. It is House Bill 2144. Again, if you do not feel that you want to go ahead and run the special education voucher bill, then please, by all means, instruct me to ask Representative Cook to withdraw the bill. And with that, I'd like to make myself available for any questions.
Thank you, Maria. Do I have a motion to grant Maria permission to go ahead and drop this bill? It is the same bill that we attempted last year, and it would provide some additional funding for transportation, I believe, and then just cost of services in general.
Yes, with the institutional voucher, yes.
Okay. So I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. This is Brittany. To grant Maria the permission to allow Representative Cook to continue this bill.
One quick question.
Sure.
Maria, what number is it?
2144, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And this is Linda, seconding. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can't hear. The folks on the phone, are we still there?
This is Colette. I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Any opposition? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you, Maria. Okay, discussion and possible action item for possible work study sessions. There are a couple of things I think that will be coming up that I think we will need more information on. What I would like to suggest is a motion from the board to have Leticia or staff do a doodle and get some dates on the calendar between our board meetings. So I'm going to go ahead and move that we have staff do that. Do I have a second? This is Katie. I'll second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposition? Hearing none, motion carries. We're moving on to 8.01, call to the public for non-agenda items.
Our first public comment was submitted by email. It's online and it can be read there. I should ask, is Kimberly, I'm going to butcher this, Akins present? Okay. Her comment is posted online. It can be read there. The second request to address the board I have is Megan Packard. Are you here? Here she comes. Okay.
Hello, Superintendent Reichman, Board President Kneifel, Assistant Superintendents, and board members. My name is Megan Packard. I'm a public interpreter here at ASDB. This is my daughter, Artemis. She is waking up a little bit, so hopefully she doesn't start crying. The reason that I'm here today is because I wanted to discuss the topic of parental leave and the donated leave policy. While I was pregnant, Governor Hobbs established a paid leave program that is a pilot program, and it is for 12 weeks of paid leave for state employees. I was thrilled when I learned of this policy. However, it states that it is for eligible state employees, and universities and ASDB are not eligible. So that was very disappointing and worrying for me. Regardless, I created a plan for my maternity leave. I used my accrued sick and personal time, and my wonderful colleagues, my fellow interpreters, offered to donate some of their leave to me to help me take advantage of my full 12 weeks of leave while paid. As time went forward, we got to the end of November, and I submitted my application for donated leave. Just yesterday, I was informed by HR that I am not eligible to receive donated leave. Reason being, the policy states that it is for non-job related, serious, incapacitating, and ongoing illness or injury. I did plan to be off for 12 weeks, starting back on February 1st, but I will actually be starting again tomorrow as a result of this. And I am very fortunate that my job has the flexibility so I can work remotely from home this month and slowly transition back. But not all staff here at ASDB have that flexibility. And I think it's important that we support our new parents, and respectfully, if there is no paid leave here, then I recommend that we change that donated leave policy at the very least in order to provide that additional support to staff. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Our second request to address the board is Polly Garcia.
Hello, members of the board and Superintendent Reichman. I'm so honored to be here tonight. I didn't expect to be able to speak today. I am still doing my research on ASDB history, and I plan to provide a summary in March. I hope that you will be open to that. I'm not here to point fingers. I just want to share the information so that the board is able to make the right informed decisions. I hope I find a ride to Phoenix for March. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I appreciate it, and Happy New Year.
That concludes all the requests on non-agenda items.
All right. Moving on to 8.02, discussion agenda items for the next regular board meeting, scheduled for March 7th, 2024 in Phoenix. One of the things I would definitely like to have added to the agenda, if not for March, then the follow-up is the, what's the word I want? Renewal of the superintendent's contract. I know that we are coming to the end of that, and so we will need to have that. And I don't know if we want to do have Polly do an information session prior to the board meeting or have her on the agenda. Either way, I'm open to that.
Can you repeat that, please, Sue?
In regards to having Polly come in and talk about the history, I don't know if we want to do that as an information session or if we want it as an actual, on the agenda item. Or we can talk about it being the next work study. I'm open to either, any.
Polly and I are scheduling a meeting next week. So we've already set up a meeting, and I plan on asking, for some more information as far as what she would like to share with the board. And it could be done either way. We can add that to the agenda to give her some time to present to the board her newfound information about the history of ASDB, or we can also do a work study session. I don't have enough information to know which would be best.
And I will leave that to your very capable hands to make that decision, and that thank you.
Okay.
Does anybody else have anything they want to add? Otherwise, you can always contact myself or Annette to add things to the agenda. If not, moving on to 9.01. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
This is Lynn.
I hear you, Lynn.
I move that meeting.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second, this is Linda.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The meeting now is adjourned at 6:21 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance.